to know a couple beats already. I've already hopefully made a video on how our hands work with the eighth notes and the 2 and 4. So now I want to make this video to show what I call the 8 basic beats. If you can play these 8 beats, then you can pretty much play every major song out there that's not changing a lot. Again, some harder stuff obviously moves around a lot, but these are kind of like the basic backbones for everything. So, and you already know 2 of them, so there's only 6 more to do, and these will really at least be the good ground, good framework to make them a little bit more complicated for later. So, everything for these videos, all 8 of them, or these beats, all 8 beats, 8th notes here, 2 and 4 here. So our hands are not doing anything different. We're always going to be changing the kick. So the first one that we did last time was kicking 1, 3. So kicking 1, 3 here, snare 2 and 4, so they go back and forth. So I'll play that a couple times so you can hear what it sounds like. So I'm going to try to remember to crash on 1 every time with the kick drum there, because that's something we'll talk about next time. So kicking 1, 3. And then we said the ones who find that one a little bit harder to learn, usually the other beat is the one that they find a lot easier. So I always kind of teach them kind of hand in hand, at least at first. So if we're not just kicking 1, 3, the other one we do is where we kick all the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hands still 2 and 4, 8th notes here. So this is called 4 on the floor. This is your dance groove. When we're playing that, and really all these, we want to make sure we're real clean. I know one time for sure, I felt where my kick and my snare didn't land exactly together. There was just a little off. Those are a little off. I can tell my kick's hitting just a little bit early. That was a little bit better. So when you're practicing those, practice them slow and really try to get everything to land together. If you're really off, you're getting these weird uneven sounds. So we don't want that to happen. So we've kicked 1, 3. We've kicked 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's go to the third one I teach, which is probably one that you can use the most often. It's a little bit harder than the first one, but it fits more music, I think. I don't really play that first one very often. If I'm going to play that one, I could probably actually play this one. It sounds a little bit bigger and fuller. So this one, we're going to kick 1, which is, we're always going to kick 1 for all these. And we're still going to kick 3, but we're going to kick the and after 3. So we're kicking an extra 8th note. So I'll count out one time really slow, and then I'll play it so you can hear it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we kind of have like a double, if you want to think about it that way, halfway through. It's not really a double, but it's 2 8th notes. 3 and. Still landing on those hi-hats though. 3 and. So I'll play that a couple times at speed, a little bit faster so you can kind of hear how it grooves. And I bet if you listen, you're like, oh, I've heard that in a song, or that makes me think of another song. And as you learn these and you start listening to the radio, we're like, oh, that's that beat. That's groove number 5 or whatever. So here's 3 and. Think Beverly Hills? No, that's not Beverly Hills. It's actually the next one. So this next one, Beverly Hills uses from Weezer, but also this is the We Will Rock You beat. So in this one, number 4, just like we doubled on 3, we went 3 and. We're still going to do that. We're going to do it on 1 as well. So we're going to go 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So if you think We Will Rock You, now we're just throwing the 8th notes on the hi-hat. I'll play it one time slow, counting it out loud so you can hear it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's 2 kicks, a snare. You have to wait that 8th note, that extra and. 3 and 4, and then that. So the hi-hat will have 2 notes just on hi-hat, and those are the ands after the snare. 1 and 2 and. it's playing all of them, but it has 2 notes just by itself. So here it is, more to speed. And that is those 2 beats, probably number 3 and number 4, probably used the most often. Really just groove with everything. Use them in worship, I can use them in metal, I can all over the place. So really, those are probably the most important ones, I would say. The next one, we're gonna actually take out some kicks. So we've in that one we kicked 4 different times, 1 and 3 and so we had 4 kick drums. This time we're going down to 2, but the placement is a little weird compared to what we've done. So for groove 5, we're on groove 5. We're still going to kick 1, so that's not changing, and we'll still snare 2. We're not kicking 3. That's where this one changes. We don't kick 3, but we do kick the and of 3. So we're waiting, and then it'd go and 4. So it's kind of delayed. This is a really good slow groove. It can be played fast. I really like this one in select. If I'm playing a slow worship song at our church, this might be the first one I'm going to try if it's a new song I don't know what to play. This feels really well. So I'll count it out real nice and slow and then play it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, here it is, more to speed. Kind of has a hip-hop feel to it. It's kind of the beginning to hip-hop. We'll get into one that's a little bit more later. I just heard Luke hit the door. We'll see if he comes in or not. So that was groove 5. Not as hard. It's only 2 kicks, but we've not kicked 3, and that's the first time there. So let's go back to kicking 3. Groove 6 is 3 kick drums. I think this one's a little bit harder to play because you got to be thinking ahead a little bit quicker. I always think it's like jumping on a merry-go-round. When you're watching that thing spin, you got to kind of keep an eye on where are you going to jump before it gets it. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself hurt. So on this one, you kind of have to think ahead. So on this one, we're going to kick 1. We'll snare 2. Then we're going to kick right after that snare on 2. We're going to kick and 3. So it's the 8th note after 2 and then 3 right. So it feels faster and it sounds better faster. So I'll play it real slow, counting it out loud, and then we'll play a little bit more to speed. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's right after that 2. So you got to really be like, you got to know where you're at. And you got to know, as soon as I get this 2, that's kind of like my launching point to get the next part in. So here it is, kind of a little bit more speed. Like I said, I like that one a little bit faster too. So, but you got to learn it slow before you get there. So that was groove 6. Now groove 7 and 8 are the hardest. 7 is much more useful than 8. I'll just go ahead and say it now. I don't actually play 8 very often, but it's good practice, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So 7, I call egg because it feels lopsided. It feels like if you had an egg rolling downhill, end over end, it has this bounce to it. So on this one, we're still kicking 1 like we normally do. We're still snaring 2. We're going to kick the and after 2, not kick 3, which is kind of weird, and then kick the and after 3, 4. So on this one, we're not kicking 3, we're kicking right after our snare and right before our next snare. So we have 2 kicks in the middle, kind of split on either end, and it just sounds a little wobbly. I don't know, that's the way I think about it. I've always called it egg. I heard another drummer one time call it egg, so I call it egg. And this is really, now you're going to hear, like, it's almost hip-hop. Like, we just have to add one more kick drum, honestly, and a 16th note spot we'll do later, and you've got your basic hip-hop groove. So I'll count it out real slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and then that speed. That sounds good fast, it sounds good slow. So that's a really fun one to play, but that one takes a lot of brain power. For me, it took a lot of brain power until I could really get comfortable with it. And then the last one, number 8, we're gonna kick everything we don't snare. So we're snaring 2 and 4. We're kicking every other eighth note. 1 and 3 and 1 and 3 and. So once we get looping this, there is a pattern: 3 kicks and snare. It doesn't start off that way, but once we do after 4 and 1 and 2, there we get those 3 kicks again. And this is the first one out of these 8 where we kick that and after 4, so we get that and 1. I call that a tag. I don't know why. I've always called it a tag. It's probably not the right term for it, but anytime I'm kicking and 1, it's kind of like I'm tagging up to the next, like in a baton race. You hand off the baton. I kind of feel like that same momentum with this. So if I'm kicking and 1, I consider that a tag. A lot of times, in harder drums, you'll have a 2-bar phrase where 1 measure, a 2nd measure, and then to get back to your beginning one, you'll tag, you'll and 1, and then that first measure starts over. So I don't know, it just didn't make sense to me. So in this one, we're kicking everything we don't snare. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 3 and 1. I'll play a little bit faster. Sometimes I call this Lenny Kravitz beat because Lenny Kravitz had one song. I don't know the name of it, but I know that was the beat. I can't find the song. So if you know the song, let me know. But the drummer, I believe the drummer was Zorro, was his name on it. And that's all he played the whole time. The whole time. That's all he did. So it's not a great groove for music unless you're playing with Lenny Kravitz, apparently. But it is a good leg warm-up, good practice, good idea, getting your limb independence, and it can fit really nice as a build. So what we can do with these 8 grooves, you can play the same groove for a whole song, or you can mix and match, or you can tie 2 of them together. The song Bound to the Floor by Local H takes, let me think, groove 3. Yeah, it's like taking groove 3 and groove 7 and mixing them. And if you go listen to Bound to the Floor, you'll know what I'm talking about. But this is the drum part to it. Now they are doing something different in that not eighth notes here. They're only playing quarter notes. So what they're doing is they're kicking on ands that aren't here. So it's if you listen, you're like, what is going on? There's a lot more going on. But that song, roughly to tempo. So it's 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, and 4. And it's kind of fun to play. It's a good grooving song. So that's kind of a crash course into my 8 basic grooves. Hopefully the next one we'll talk about when we crash, when we can do a fill, how to do a fill. But you have to have a bedrock. Even if you don't do any crash cymbals or any fills. With these 3, you can keep a band together, and that's kind of the most important part, right? We have 2 jobs: keep the band together, make people dance. You can do that with these 3 instruments. You don't need everything else. I've actually pulled out some extra gear just to make it easier to see. So hopefully that helps, and I'll make another video sometime.